Cemeteries and graveyards are everywhere. Every city, town and village has one. And yet there's the old saying that cemeteries and golf courses are the biggest waste of space in modern day. But it wasn't always like that. For hundreds of years, cemeteries were places to gather and enjoy the surroundings. And we should still be doing that today because they're great places to explore. So let's talk reasons to regularly visit your cemeteries. History. How we deal with and mourn the dead explains a lot about our culture and the time period. It shows what was important to the people at that time. How people died and were mourned goes a long way to explaining how they lived. Indeed, in many cemeteries, you will very clearly see the divide between the rich and the poor, the saints and the sinners. Often, a community divided of the time shows up in the layout of the local cemetery. Cemeteries also bring history to life. We weren't alive during the world wars, the plagues, or many large-scale historical events. But these cemeteries and their inhabitants were. That tombstone was made, chosen and bought by a person during that time. They mourned in front of it, that same spot where you're standing now. The sites and layouts of now defunct cemeteries and graveyards were originally chosen for a good reason and purpose at the time, and exploring this is a very good history lesson. Cemeteries could be thought of as open-air museums, showing off amazing one-of-a-kind artwork and sculptures. But even those on a smaller scale can give a lot of interesting information. Many old tombstones will include symbols indicating a person's profession or allocation within the community that they lived. Serenity. Cemeteries are meant to be visited. Back in the 1800s, they were places where families had picnics and shared time together. Indeed, when I was in the UK, you would see joggers and dog walkers in large cemeteries all the time. They are tranquil and peaceful places, and in our busy world, that's a rarity. Bring a book and a coffee and sit under one of the big trees and enjoy an hour or two of peace and quiet. Another way to enjoy the surroundings is tomb cleaning. Okay, so many people will groan at the idea of doing any more cleaning than absolutely necessary, but for many cultures, particularly the Chinese, tomb sweeping day is very important. But even if this isn't your culture, there are many graves out there that haven't had a visitor in decades or longer. With some hot water and a sponge, you could spend a bit of time remembering this person and respectfully cleaning up their grave area as a way to say you're not forgotten. Now, for all of you who enjoy a bit of nature, you're in for a treat. Many cemeteries incorporate woodlands, bushland and overgrowth into their sites. And you know what else likes these things? Wildlife. With very few people hanging around in large cemeteries, deer, squirrels, birds all have the place to themselves. Some of my most enjoyable wildlife watching was done at Highgate Cemetery in London. There was also this dude who had made himself at home and whose owners had a sign at the front of the cemetery indicating that no, the little shit was not lost and he in fact just enjoyed the attention at the cemetery from visitors and staff. Death acceptance. When you go to a cemetery and you look out on the horizon, you see just how vast of an area is full of the dead. There's no denying it. And guess what? They're okay. It's okay to die and be dead. It's happened to everyone before us and will happen to everyone after us, no matter how much those cryonics people seem to say otherwise. The more you are around something, the more normal or less weird it starts to feel. And for those saying death is not something we should ever feel normal about, again, take a look around at all these plots. Death is normal, my friend. It's time to acknowledge that. Cemeteries, by their very nature, make you reflect on your own mortality and death. This, along with some fascinating grave sculptures, makes visiting a cemetery a good time to think about what you would like as a tombstone should you be buried. For myself, the cemetery where most of my family is buried doesn't really inspire much creativity. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a rule against it. However, I found this one at Highgate Cemetery and thought it was perfect. Also, I saw one on the net somewhere that read something along the lines of, "If you can read this, you're standing on my boobs." My point being that death doesn't have to be serious, and tombstones don't have to be generic. What are some other reasons that you might visit a cemetery? Let us know in the comments. Please like and subscribe to let us know that you enjoyed this video. Now go talk death.